Dorothy Palmer woke at 2:47 a.m. to the sound of her own voice, screaming for help from the living room below. But Dorothy was alone in her bedroom, her door locked from the inside, her phone on the nightstand showing no missed calls. The screaming continued, her exact voice, her exact cadence, begging someone to stop, pleading for mercy. Then she heard footsteps on the stairs, heavy and deliberate, coming toward her room. Dorothy hadn't left her bedroom, so who was screaming with her voice downstairs? Stay until the end, because what Dorothy discovered about the voice wasn't supernatural. It was something far more terrifying, and it had been planned for months. Dorothy lived alone in the 2-story colonial house she'd shared with her late husband for 43 years. At 71, she'd grown accustomed to the silence, to the creaks and groans of an old house settling. But this sound was different. This sound was impossible. Her own voice, crystal clear through the darkness. "Please, someone help me. He's going to kill me. Please." Dorothy sat up in bed, her heart hammering. The screaming continued, growing more desperate, more panicked. It was her voice. Not similar, not close, exactly her voice, with the slight rasp she'd developed after pneumonia 2 years ago, with the way she pronounced her vowels, with every inflection she'd spent 71 years creating. She grabbed her phone to call 911, but before she could dial, the screaming stopped. Silence fell over the house like a heavy blanket. Dorothy waited, barely breathing, listening. Then she heard it. Footsteps, starting at the bottom of the stairs, beginning their slow ascent. Each step, deliberate, measured, like someone who had all the time in the world. Imagine hearing your own voice screaming for help while you're lying in bed. Subscribe right now to follow Dorothy's terrifying night. Hit that bell so you don't miss what happens next. Dorothy's door was locked. She knew it was locked. She checked it every night before bed, a habit formed after her husband died. But the footsteps continued up the stairs, reaching the landing, turning toward her bedroom. The door handle turned, once, twice, testing, then stopped. Dorothy held her breath in the darkness, her phone clutched in her hand, finger hovering over the emergency call button. 30 seconds passed. A minute. The house fell silent again. Then her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Dorothy looked at the screen, and her blood turned to ice. The message contained a video file. Against every instinct, Dorothy pressed play. The video showed her living room from a camera angle she'd never seen before. The footage was from earlier that evening. She could see herself sitting on the couch, watching television, completely unaware she was being recorded. The timestamp read 9:34 p.m. about 5 hours ago. Then the angle changed to a different camera. Her kitchen. Another timestamp. 7:15 p.m. Dorothy eating dinner alone. Another angle. Her bedroom. Timestamp. 10:42 p.m. Dorothy getting ready for bed, changing clothes, completely exposed and vulnerable. Someone had been watching her, recording her. For how long? The final clip showed a man's hands holding a device, some kind of audio equipment. On the screen was a waveform analysis labeled Dorothy Palmer Voice Profile, 847 samples, synthesis ready. A synthesizer. Someone had recorded enough of her voice to create an AI replica that could say anything, sound exactly like her, fool anyone who heard it. The video ended with text appearing on screen. "The police are on their way, Dorothy. When they arrive, they'll find you standing over a body in your living room, covered in blood, holding a knife. Your voice will be on a 911 recording, confessing to murder. Your fingerprints will be on the weapon. Security footage will show you alone in the house all night, and you won't remember any of it, because you'll be in shock. By the time you can explain, you'll already be arrested. You have 1 hour to transfer $500,000 to the account number below, or the recording plays." Dorothy stared at the message, her mind racing. This was an elaborate extortion scheme. But who and how? Dorothy is being framed for a murder that hasn't even happened yet. In type, "Fight back" in the comments if you think she can outsmart them. Then Dorothy heard something that changed everything. A voice from downstairs, not hers this time. A man's voice, low and frustrated. The recording didn't play. She's still awake. "We need plan B." Someone was actually in her house. This wasn't just digital manipulation. There were real people downstairs, right now, executing whatever plan B meant. But Dorothy Palmer hadn't survived 71 years by being helpless. Her husband had been a police detective for 30 years before his retirement. He taught her things, prepared her for scenarios like this, even though she'd never believed they'd happen. Dorothy moved silently to her closet and pulled out the lockbox her husband had installed. Inside was his old service weapon. She'd kept it maintained. Went to the range twice a year to stay proficient, just like he'd taught her. She also grabbed something else, a small, digital recorder her husband had used for interviews. It was already recording. Had been recording since the moment she'd heard her voice screaming. She had evidence, audio evidence of everything, the fake screaming, the footsteps, the voices downstairs discussing Plan B. Dorothy unlocked her bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. The house was dark, but she knew every inch of it. She moved to the top of the stairs and looked down. 3 figures stood in her living room, illuminated by the glow of laptop screens. They were young, mid-20s, dressed in black, wearing gloves. Tech equipment was spread across her coffee table, cameras on tripods, audio synthesizers. A mannequin, dressed in clothes identical to what Dorothy had been wearing earlier, positioned on the couch with a knife in its chest. They were staging a crime scene, planning to trigger it remotely, create chaos, make Dorothy look guilty while they disappeared with their extortion money. Dorothy raised the gun and turned on the hall light. "Police are already on their way," she said calmly. "I called them 5 minutes ago while you were busy downstairs. I have recordings of everything. Your voices, your equipment, your plan. You can leave now and hope they don't find you. Or you can stay and explain to the detectives how this works." The three intruders froze. The leader, a young man with a laptop, started to speak, but Dorothy cut him off. "I recorded your synthesized version of my voice. I recorded your conversation about Plan B. I have video of you breaking into my house on my husband's old body camera I activated the moment I heard footsteps. You planned this for months, but you made one mistake. You assumed an old woman living alone would be an easy target." She paused, listening. In the distance, sirens. "That's the police. Real police. Not your fake 911 call. When they get here, they're going to find you standing in my living room with a fake crime scene, audio equipment, and every piece of evidence they need to charge you with attempted extortion, breaking and entering, and conspiracy to commit fraud." The three intruders looked at each other, panic setting in. They'd spent months planning this, researching Dorothy, installing hidden cameras, recording her voice, building the synthesizer, timing everything perfectly, but they'd underestimated their target. The leader made a move toward the back door, but Dorothy shook her head. "Don't. I have motion sensors in the yard now. You won't make it." The police arrived 3 minutes later, finding Dorothy standing calmly at the top of her stairs, gun lowered, phone in hand, with three would-be criminals trapped in her living room surrounded by evidence of their own crime. The investigation revealed everything. The three suspects were part of a sophisticated elder fraud ring targeting wealthy widows. They'd hit 6 other victims in 3 states, successfully extorting over $2 million. Dorothy was supposed to be victim number 7. They'd chosen her because she lived alone, because she was elderly, because they thought she'd be easy to terrify and manipulate. They'd spent 4 months preparing, installing hidden cameras disguised as electrical outlets, recording her voice during phone calls with telemarketers they'd set up, building a detailed profile of her habits and routines. But they'd missed one crucial detail in their research. Dorothy's husband had been Captain Robert Palmer, head of the fraud division for 20 years. He'd trained her, prepared her, made sure she knew how to handle herself in worst-case scenarios. Dorothy testified at their trial 6 months later. All 3 were convicted and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The FBI used Dorothy's case to break the entire fraud ring, leading to 12 more arrests across 4 states. Dorothy proved that age is just a number when it comes to courage and intelligence. If this story inspired you, leave a like and share it with someone who needs to see that being underestimated can be your greatest advantage. Click the video on your screen now for another story of someone who refused to be a victim. See you next time.